Ukraine and Russia, what's the latest? What's going on? Well, the territorial gains by Russia in Ukraine have really slowed down. The real story is happening in the skies above the countries. Russia is now launching 300 to 400 drones daily at Ukrainian cities, numbers that dwarf anything we've seen earlier in this war in terms of average drones used per day. Ukraine is striking back as well, deep inside Russia, with more and more often devastating hits and consequences, economically and militarily. Just this week, Ukrainian drones hit a Shahed or Geran drone storage facility in Krasnodar, destroyed military equipment in Penza, and set fire to oil refineries across Russian territories, including in Sochi, whose name you may have heard before because why is my hair always itchy during these videos? I don't understand. You may have heard of Sochi. Sorry, let's carry on. Because of the Winter Olympic Games that were held there a few years ago. The Ukrainian attacks are, in some cases, strategic strikes targeting Russia's war machine and its ability to keep pumping out more drones, or in the case of oil refineries, of course, it's a focus on hitting Russia economically. Russia, in return, is keeping Ukraine in a very unstable state. The country's economy has ground to a halt, has been for years now. Investment is near non existent. Who, after all, wants to invest in a country that's at war and its capital is being bombarded at least a few times a week? It's just not safe, it's just not business friendly. The titans of industry, the wealthy investors normally that move from country to country and sink their money into the economy, start new production lines, connect into the economy, open up new job opportunities, they're just not going to go to Ukraine, right? And of course, Ukrainian manpower is still at an all-time low. They're running out of men. They have run out of men, basically. Now, I just want to slot this in before I continue. Don't fall for any crypto scams. It's really got to this. Over 10 copycats I'm tracking now. Accounts that basically pretend to be me, clip my videos and post it as their own. They have the, display picture of me. I'm kind of flattered, kind of annoyed, can't really do much. TikTok hasn't really closed any of these accounts down. Basically, long story short, I'll never ask you about crypto. I'll never tell you to move the conversation to Telegram and say, "Are you enjoying my content?" No, shut up. Shut up. Okay, so if that happens to you, you're getting scammed or you're trying to get scammed by one of my copycats. Excellent muffles, amazing English. You are absolutely a native speaker. 10 out of 10. You shouldn't be shipped back to Bangladesh. Okay, no. So block them, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Block them. Okay, now back to the topic. Putin claims his demands haven't changed. A negotiated ceasefire, even a peace, is analytically speaking on offer from Russia to Ukraine, but on Russian terms, because Russia sees that they are currently winning. It's an analytically fair stance to take. I'm not being biased. I'm saying analytically, looking at the geostrategic situation in Eastern Europe on the ground, Russia is in a position to say, okay, we're looking for a peace, but it has to come with concessions from you. But the problem is, Ukraine continues to be supported by Western Europe, not supported in a way they can end the war or win the war, but supported to keep on fighting. So they're not really backed into a situation where their only option is to go to the negotiating table. They have options to just try and hold out with Western support, and Zelensky is taking that option. Bluntly speaking, Western Europe, why are they helping Ukraine still? Because they want Ukraine to delay Russia while these Western European countries rearm themselves to be ready for direct confrontation with Russia themselves in the future. They've used Ukraine as a proxy speed bump that Russia has to drive over. It's crude, but it's analytically the reality, it's the assessment. The sound assessment. Zelensky of Ukraine seems to be happy, the president, right? Seems to be happy to take this Western support and keep his country in economic limbo, no problem. Peace doesn't seem to be something he's particularly interested in. Certainly not peace on Russian terms, that is. He would be happy to agree to a ceasefire and a peace that doesn't consider the Russian gains on the ground, and therefore geopolitically is unreasonable to expect, but that's what he's holding out for. Ukraine is occupied by Russia, some parts long occupied, meaning it's been under control of the Russian Federation, even though it's internationally recognized as Ukraine, for years, more than years, some territories, especially on the DLZK front, the southern oblasts or provinces in Ukraine, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, and Crimea, of course. But Zelensky doesn't want to. Ukraine doesn't want to recognize these gains as official and officially give those provinces or oblasts up. to Russia. Now, when your enemy can strike your homeland at will, negotiation from strength becomes much harder. That's the situation for Russia. They are at the advantage, but Ukraine keeps hitting back in disruptive and problematic uh, in disruptive and problematic ways, and Russia doesn't really have a way to counter economically. There's no sort of interceptions that Russia can do against these drones or missiles in a way that's economical and the success rate is 100%. It just doesn't work. They can just hit back, and they do hit back, but really the tit for tat, the back and forth, is not good economically speaking for either of these Eastern European states. Russia could further their advantage. They could cement things. They could tighten the noose, as it were, that lies around the neck of the Ukrainian state. But Vladimir Putin, Russian president, for the time being, seems unwilling to ramp up Russian aggression. And Russian aggression ramp up is what would be needed to tighten that noose. He's not willing to commit more arms, more people, or more infantry, more soldiers to the assaults that would be needed to break through the Ukrainian lines. So for now, both sides take it easy, as it were. The war grinds on with very little change on the ground. One drone strike, one missile bombardment, one Western aid shipment at a time. The war grinds on. And I'll try to make at least a post giving you the Russia Ukraine update every 3 days. But if I can't, and if there's not much to talk about in terms of progress, in terms of advancement, in terms of new bits of news, then maybe once a week. I'm trying to get into the routine that allows me to cover a variety of different regions and conflict zones so that you're up to date and you don't have to go to other channels to find that information. Anyway, thank you for listening. For the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Muffles, and I'll see you on the next one.